One of the things that I've loved about Cambio is that it seems to work well for the many different types of informal learning institutions that have been involved. We have museums, we have zoos, we have botanical gardens, children's museums, we have science centers, really a broad array of organizations that are focused on engaging with their Latinx communities and looking toward making change internally so that they can be more relevant to their communities. Part of the strength of what we've been able to do together is that each participating institution has been able to work on a project that is specific to their organization's needs and the needs of their community. For the Cambio project, we created a framework designed to help museums think about their work with communities and specifically with Latinx communities. Each of the spokes is really about encouraging museum staff to think through how they do their work and how they might change how they're doing their work. We're encouraging museum staff to think about their own identities, how they think about the identities of the folks that they're working with and hoping to serve in the community. But we're also encouraging them to think about their museum's identity.
Our whole vision for teaching STEM and teaching science to kids is we want them to come away with the awareness that they're already scientists. In one of our biggest galleries, we have a lot of science exhibits, and we had quotes on the wall that were in English only, and they were predominantly, well-recognized scientists. So lots of great Albert Einstein quotes and things that of course mattered, but did they really connect with children? When we redid the gallery, we said, what do we want to have that reflect? We wanted it to be pictures of people that looked like the people that were our audience, so children could see themselves reflected in somebody that they could aspire to be as a scientist. What we wanted to do was make sure that the community that we served saw themselves reflected in what we did.
For Build Relationships, we're really encouraging museum staff to think about building relationships within their museum and also externally.
One of the things that we have started doing at a deeper level with this is how we are gathering our staff around it. We have loved bringing our team together to play Loteria. We have had Café y Charlar, which is so great because not only are we just getting together around coffee, we're also supporting one of our staff members who owns her own roastery. And so there's just a lot of intersectionality of us being able to commune with one another. We knew that we wanted to dive in deep with how we worked with our community, and in particular our Latino neighbors and community members around Indiana. And we worked to build our external community council. We wanted to make sure that we were assembling a council that was very diverse in their areas of expertise, from education, teachers in the classroom, leaders in schools, marketing and communication professionals, and cultural leaders across the board. This council has been a tremendous voice already.
Thinking about how they value cultural expression for the many different cultural groups they might be working with, and specifically within the Latinx communities.
One of the first things that we did was look at our programs and look at our communication styles and recognize we're in a predominantly Spanish-speaking or a Hispanic population, but we didn't have any Spanish language programming. Now we have 13 different field trips that are available in English and Spanish. All of our communications are available both in English and Spanish. We make sure we're partnering with other organizations that are in those communities in a way that they want to be partnered with. We went on a bit of a listening tour and found people that said, oh yeah, we haven't been to the Children's Museum, we didn't even know we had a Children's Museum. And then we talked to them about what they would want to see or what was preventing them from being part of the Children's Museum family. And then you built from that. And I think that was our hardest challenge is knowing where to start to get it right.
We encourage museums to examine structures and assumptions in their work as they look at the internal processes that they engage in and how they might want to change those by understanding the assumptions that have been in place that they haven't brought to life yet.
Right now, we're in this place of challenging our assumptions in the organization when we look at our operating schedule. Coming out of the pandemic and then a flood, when we built our operating schedule, it was with the knowledge of how school groups used to engage with the museum. And at that time, rather than taking a year and saying, okay, now let's look at the data, it just became a standard practice. Like, that's our operational calendar, and we're going to go forth and we're going to just use that as the model of how we're building budgets and how we're thinking about staff. And so this year, we've been critically examining the why. What are the assumptions that we're making about how visitors are coming to the museum? And what's the data that we're using to back up those assumptions? So how are we critically examining what we think we know about how people engage with us as an institution? And how do we use that information to then build back up? And so it really is reflecting on all aspects of operations to then use that information to either change a practice or understand the why behind a certain practice.
We also encourage museums to think about how they're sharing power and decision-making internally and also externally.
I think with our institution, we constantly struggle with shared authority and decision-making because we haven't ever really done it that way. So those spokes at the beginning of our time in Cambio and throughout, we have constantly pointed back to decision-making and shared authority as something that we need to really very intentionally and consciously work toward.
When I think about leadership, the quality of kind of sharing power, sharing authority is something that I think about. In order to do that, I think institutions really need to set a tone, right? They need to be inviting. Folks need to see that their ideas matter, that they can contribute to an organization. So it's not just about how are you welcoming new ideas, it's how are you setting a culture, how are you setting a tone for your organization that invites that kind of thought to happen.
And finally, that idea of taking risks and making change.
I think one of the biggest takeaways for me and for our team from the Cambio experience has been in taking risks and being comfortable in a space of letting other people have authority, letting other people on your team, bringing in expertise from the outside, and listening to other voices that, well, I could just make the decision myself. It's going to be a much better, a much richer outcome if we come together and we all have buy-in and we came to it together.
Our journey toward organizational change happens in small steps and large steps. It's all about being willing to take the risk to make change.